He's one of the most thoughtful commentators on the Middle East. Not surprising, given that his title is president of the Middle East Forum. I'm talking about Dr. Daniel Pipes. We had him here in studio in Toronto, and now he joins us from Washington, D.C. Dr. Pipes, thanks for being back on the show.
Great to be with you, Ezra.
There's so many things happening in the Middle East. Iran has been on the slow cooker for years, but it looks like their surrogate, their colony, Syria, is about to topple. Can you tell me what news you have from Syria? And I know that you actually speak Arabic, so perhaps you're punching through just the English language filter. What's actually going on in Damascus?
Syria is seeing ever more violence, ever more resistance to the violence that the state is using. Areas are now, the government is now losing control of various areas. And in the outside world, one after another state is turning against the Syrians, whether it be the neighbor to the north, Turkey, or the other Arab states. The only two allies really left are Iran and Russia. It's not a whole lot. I think the fate of this dynasty, the Assad dynasty, of this tyranny, is finished. I don't know if it's weeks, months, but they can't survive. Now, the greatest importance of this, from a strategic point of view, not a humanitarian point of view, but a strategic point of view, is what this does to Iran, because Syria has been, for over 30 years, the great ally of Iran. The way for the Iranians to have an influence in the heart of the Middle East, the way for them to, for example, get arms and money to Hezbollah and Hamas, and it'll be a real blow to the Iranians to lose the Syrian ally. And I predict that should there be a change of regime in Syria, whatever regime follows will break the alliance with Iran.
Now, that won't surprise a lot of observers, but what will it mean back in Iran proper? To lose an outpost, an ally, a colony is a foreign policy setback, but will it destabilize Ahmadinejad and the Ayatollahs back home in Iran?
No, it won't destabilize them, but it'll be a big blow to them, to their prestige. And it could, who knows, it could lead to some new form of resistance on the part of the Iranian people. After all, the ally of the Iranian regime lost power in Syria, and perhaps that's incentive to do it in Iran. I don't know, but I think the real importance is in foreign policy. And of course, the great foreign policy question for Iran is building nuclear weapons. The Iranians have shown over and over again, reconfirmed it just a few days ago, that they intend to build those weapons no matter what. Whatever the price might be, they plan to go ahead. It could be bluff, it could be real. My sense is that it is real, that they intend to build those nuclear weapons.
Some 30 years ago, Israel sent F-15 and F-16 fighter jets to bomb Saddam Hussein's nuclear reactor in Iraq. Very low casualties, destroyed the nuclear reactor, and stopped Saddam from getting the bomb. It's a very different ballgame today. Iran has a much stronger military. They're prepared for it. And Israel perhaps lacks the support of its key ally, the United States. Do you think it is possible that that either the United States or Israel, or both, will have a similar surgical strike on Iran, or do you think that just won't work these days?
Well, a couple of points. Secondly, the Israelis attacked the Syrian nuclear facilities in 2007. It's not so much that the Iranians have a stronger military. Their military is pretty much out of date. It's that they've dispersed the various functions, and they have put them more or less underground. They're more and more going underground. In some cases, 100 meters or so underground. So this is the immediate timetable that the Israelis have indicated that in the next few months, the Iranians are going to be putting so much underground that they won't be able to stop it anymore. The Israelis have two possible ways of stopping it militarily. One would be what everyone's talking about, which is fighter planes crossing, whatever it be, Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, who knows, and going in and striking a number of key targets. It's a long way off. The Israelis do not have bomber planes. It would be difficult for them to do. The other, much less discussed possibility is for the Israelis to use tactical nuclear weapons based on submarines. Now, this escalates it even more, but it is conceivable, and they could, I think, reach down wherever they have to go. So the Israelis can do it. The question is, what is the price and what is the attitude of the U.S. government? The U.S. government has been rather coy. It's clearly not wanting the Israelis to go ahead on an official level, but who knows behind the scenes? I find this, by the way, a very difficult question to discuss because I presume that a lot of what you and I and the audience thinks we know, we don't really know, that there's disinformation out there. that we're being fed stories that we cannot dispute because we don't know the real truth.
What about a third option, namely troops on the ground at those sites for a period of minutes or hours to be extracted? I mean, surely there's got to be a middle way between, a surgical strike by planes and tactical nukes, which, to me sounds politically unthinkable. I mean, to use nuclear weapons in a war for the first time since the Second World War, it sounds so toxic politically that it would so eternally set the world's against whoever would do so. That's something I don't know if Israel would do it unless it was on the verge of being attacked itself. Is there a middle way? Is there other military alternatives that we can even guess about?
Well, if the United States forces were to attack the Iranian facilities, there would be other options. The United States has, of course, a much larger military force, has larger planes, is closer bases, has more ordnance, has probably better intelligence. So one can imagine that American troops would be placed on the ground and do things while on the ground. It's rather hard for me to imagine the Israelis doing that. But, they're not telling me what they're planning, so I can't tell you you're wrong.
Of course not. But Dr. Pipes, we've been reading about Iran's plans for really 6 years now, and it's always, it's imminent, but it seems like there's a certain urgency now that the European Union sanctions on oil are coming in. More carrier battle groups are being deployed by the United States. There's threats of shutting down the Straits of Hormuz. There's leaks out of the Israeli cabinet about an attack. I mean, it seems that things are reaching a drumbeat. Mm-hmm. Am I wrong, or is it just,
No.
Is there a new sense of urgency? And if so, when do you think that tipping point will be met?
Ezra, I've never known you to be wrong. No, you're right. There is an urgency, and I think it's this date that I mentioned before, of July being the time when so much will go underground that non-nuclear weapons will no longer be sufficient to stop the program. So July is now looming. We've been hearing dates all along that keep on receding, another year, 2 years. But for the first time, we have a more definite date, a rather specific date, not a distant date. So that's, I think, what's given it the urgency. And there's been a lot of media coverage, as you say, a lot of chit-chat by the Israelis. A lot of the United Nations Secretary General went to Israel to say, slow down, cool it. The various Americans have gone to Israel, supposedly. I mean, again, one never knows quite what's taking place, but supposedly going there to cool down the Israelis. I suspect we'll learn the real truth in about 10 years, what is happening these days. I'm from experience, I say, we don't know what we don't know.
Well, fair enough. Well, we'll keep watching. Dr. Daniel Pipes, President of the Middle East Forum, thank you so much for joining us again.